I was reborn. Back to the year I was 30. Aunt May, who I hadn't seen for many years, appeared right in front of me. "Madam, Sean just called back. He said he won't be working overtime tonight, and there's no need to cook at home. He wants you to take Nina, the three of you go out to eat." So, it was that day. The day Sean called the end of life. On that day, he ruthlessly severed ties with his lover, determined to return to his family. From then on, he lived as a father and husband, but was no longer a real, flesh-and-blood person. He sacrificed the man named Sean to love, leaving behind an empty shell for his wife and daughter. I am that wife. Aunt May, could you please call Mr. Sean and tell him that if he's not working late tonight, to come home early? I have something to discuss with him. Also, no need to eat out, just make a couple of simple dishes. It'll be just the two of us. After I gave the instructions, Aunt May hesitated. "Madam, maybe you should call Mr. Sean yourself? If I call him and he has any questions, I wouldn't be able to answer." I realized she was right. It wasn't really appropriate for Aunt May to make this call. I just instinctively didn't want any unnecessary involvement with him. In the end, I made the call myself. "Sean, if you're not working late tonight, come home early. I have something to tell you." Sean was a bit surprised. "If there's something going on, couldn't you have said it when we were out eating together? Our whole family hasn't had a meal together in a long time." The corner of my mouth twitched, and I smiled silently. "So he knew too?" Not wanting to say more, I replied lightly, "There's nothing to really get together for. Just make sure you come back early tonight." I was the one who hung up the phone first. He seemed momentarily stunned, a brief hello, lingering on the other end of the line. I could imagine his surprise. After all, when I used to call him, I would always ramble on for a long time, and it was always him who grew impatient before I reluctantly hung up. I once, deeply, depended on him like that. Sean came back right on time at 6 o'clock. I sat on the sofa, eyes fixed on the computer screen, not looking up. "You're back? There's food on the table, go ahead and eat, I'll be there in a minute." "Where are Nina and the others?" Sean peeked around, looking. Nina wasn't home, nor was Aunt May. The TV was off, and the room lights were dark. His voice carried a hint of confusion. I tapped on the keyboard, then clicked the mouse once more. When the words "sent successfully" appeared on the screen, I finally let out a sigh of relief. I stretched my shoulders and got up to walk over to the dining table. I asked Aunt May to take Nina to my mother's house. "I'll pick her up tonight." "Oh." Sean sat down, and I served myself a bowl of rice, eating quietly. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of him looking slightly surprised. I used to lovingly serve him rice and soup. At first, he said, "Baby, you don't have to do that." But over time, he gradually got used to it. He paused for a moment, then picked up the spoon and served himself some rice. I ate while saying, "The reason I called you back today is to talk to you about the divorce." Sean stopped mid-bite, looked at me, frowning. "Divorce? Who's getting divorced? Who did you hear is having a divorce at home?" After Nina was born, I quit my job and stayed at home. One of the joys of life was gossiping and chatting with other moms who were also raising kids. After getting home, I shared with him at the dinner table the other moms' creative cutting remarks, speaking animatedly. Sean didn't really respond to me. He just smiled politely. I was foolish then, unable to see the coldness and annoyance in his eyes. "It's not about other families, it's about me and you." I looked at him calmly. "Haven't you been stressed about this lately? I thought, since we're adults, we should clear things up first. Anything can be discussed, and it's best not to take it to court. We should try to minimize the harm to the child as much as possible. You don't disagree with that, do you?" Sean held his hand up in midair, seemingly forgetting he was supposed to serve the rice. His eyebrows knitted together, his eyes confused. "What exactly are you talking about? I never thought about divorcing you." "What are you imagining?" He never thought about it? It didn't matter anymore. "So you never thought about it? That's fine. If you don't want to bring up divorce now, then I'll say it instead. Sean, let's get a divorce." "Let's get a divorce," those words slipped out easily. I even nodded at him to emphasize the weight of what I was saying. His affair was something he kept from me the entire previous life, until he died in a car accident. While sorting through his belongings, I found countless unsent emails in an electronic mailbox he hadn't used for a long time. They were filled with his desperate longing, the pain of love unfulfilled, and the torment he endured every second we were together. Only then did I realize. The lover, husband, and partner I had adored and clung to with all my heart had long since devoted his soul sincerely to another woman. Even though so much time has passed, I still cannot forget the overwhelming, suffocating terror that washed over me. All that has passed, all that was familiar, has shattered into pieces. I no longer know what is true, what is false, what is kindness, and what is deceit. Like a fish thrown onto land by a giant wave, separated from the world it knows, everything seen and felt distorts and warps on the retina, drying out. How strange it is. Truly heartbreaking. In my previous life, I spent a long time rebuilding myself. So now, I can calmly say to him, "Sean, let's get a divorce." Even as Sean stood there bewildered, I spoke to comfort him, "I'm sorry. If I'd known you'd react this strongly, I should have waited until after dinner to tell you." Sean struggled to swallow, opened his mouth to speak, but then touched his throat and coughed dryly, as if he had a vocal obstruction, unable to make a sound for a moment. This was painful somatization. I was no stranger to it. But what puzzled me was, why was he in pain? According to his letter, he had just had lunch with his lover today. The young and beautiful lover told him she couldn't bear to destroy his family and planned to withdraw from this three-person dilemma. He watched the tears swirling in her eyes but never falling, his heart tormented as if in hell, aching as if it would tear apart. He dissected himself in his mind, feeling a deep pity for his lover, yet also selfishly relieved that she had chosen to step away voluntarily. This meant he could return to his family and steadfastly take on the responsibilities of a husband and father, which seemed to be the right choice after all. So today, he came back with the mindset of a martyr, willing to sacrifice his own love and happiness to preserve his family and wife and children. But just as he was ready to walk the path of martyrdom, she slipped away. The wife he wanted to save took the initiative to speak to him. "Let's get a divorce." Sean was silent for a long time. "Did you hear something outside? Or did someone say something to you?" He looked up at me. There are a lot of idlers in society who just like to spread baseless rumors. I was a bit surprised. I thought that since I took the initiative to ask for a divorce, even if he wasn't overjoyed, he should at least tacitly agree. So why did he look so reluctant? I spoke to him calmly. "Sean, whether your relationship with Lila is just a rumor or not, you know best in your heart. Don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming you. When a marriage reaches this point, it's definitely not just one person's fault. But I guess you're probably not interested in discussing how to maintain and navigate a marriage with me. For me, I mainly just want to clear things up between us, so it won't be awkward when we're together." Sean instinctively grabbed onto one word. "Awkward? What awkward?" I explained, "There are no feelings left between us, and you have someone else outside. So I think it's awkward for both of us to continue living together under the name of husband and wife. I went out today and found an agent to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. Once I buy the furniture and appliances in a few days, I'll move out. During this transition period, I have no choice but to stay here for now. Look, do you want to stay in the guest room or temporarily stay at Lila's place?" Sean sat across the dining table like a block of wood, seemingly unable to process the overwhelming flood of information. He only caught one key point. "You've already rented the apartment?" I answered, "Yes. Also, I need to tell you that I paid 2 years' rent using your credit card. But after the divorce, you're supposed to bear part of Nina's living expenses anyway, so I just took that money from you in advance. You don't have any objections, do you?" "No, no objections." "No, that's not what I want to talk about regarding the apartment." He irritably tugged at his hair. "Joanne, listen to me. I don't know how you found out, but I admit, I had a complicated relationship with Lila before. However, we cleared things up this afternoon, and she agreed to step back. I will return to the family and be a good husband and father. Please, give me a chance, okay?" I was very surprised. What was Sean doing? He was pleading with me, trying to make amends. He said he wanted to be a good husband and a good father. So what about those agonizing nights when no one was around? What about the deep affection and longing that fell between the lines of his words? What about the torment he endured with me? Even after 2 lifetimes, I never truly understood. In Sean's eyes, what am I? In his letter, He said I was a delicate flower spoiled by his care, and if he were to abandon me, my remaining years would be miserable and destitute. He and I fell in love in college. He was my senior, 2 grades above me. Our campus romance, both of us first loves, was naturally pure and passionate, joyfully rushing headlong into the prison of marriage. Not long after starting work, I unexpectedly became pregnant and resigned to return to family life. From then on, I was disconnected from society. My mind was filled only with diapers, milk powder, and learning about child-rearing. A housewife like this, if thrown into the competitive world, would be crushed to powder, not a bone left intact. He couldn't bear it. He said that I was, after all, his woman. Although he no longer loved me, he had obligations and responsibilities. He probably didn't realize that I, Joanne, am not a flower that can be sustained by mere duty and responsibility. Without sincere love, I would rather face the wind and rain alone. If you cannot give me a true heart, then I have my pride and will not tolerate an empty shell burdened only with responsibility. Sean and I fell in love in college, weathered storms together, started a family, had a daughter, and spent many years side by side. Yet in the end, he never truly understood me. I called him gently. Sean. No matter the reason, there's no way forward between us now. If we keep going, it will only lead to a dead end. You're upset right now, so I won't argue. I'm going to Mom's to pick up Nina. When we get back, if you haven't cleared out your personal belongings from the master bedroom, I'll move into the guest room. As for everything else, I'll have the lawyer contact you tomorrow. I stood up, pulled out a chair, and looked at this haggard, helpless man under the soft beige light, then suddenly smiled. It's okay, Sean. Divorce isn't as hard as you think, and this change won't break you. You'll get through it. Trust me, you'll do just fine. For example, in my past life, I was middle-aged and faced the betrayal of losing my husband. I realized I was living in a huge lie. In the dead of night, I cried out in agony, collapsed on the ground. I thought the sky would fall. But when I woke up, I found the sun still rising as usual. My daughter was still asleep. In half an hour, she would need to eat a breakfast that met the nutritional standards of a college entrance exam student. The world hadn't changed one bit because of my all-night breakdown. If I could do it, what reason did he have not to? I took Nina home in the evening, and Sean had already moved to the guest room. After Nina fell asleep, I stepped out of the room. Sean was sitting on the sofa. Only a small lamp was on in the living room. Joanne, can we talk? It had been a long time since I heard him say that. Since he got busy with work, we no longer shared a common language. He wasn't interested in my parenting or gossip, and I knew nothing about his work. Gradually, it became me talking one-sidedly while he put on a smiling mask and listened silently. How foolish I was back then, thinking this was the gentle maturity that comes with time. Little did I know he was giving up on himself, enduring my chatter like a form of self-inflicted punishment. I smiled apologetically at him. It's too late, maybe another day. I'm very busy tomorrow. I wasn't lying, I really was busy. In the morning, I went to the law firm to meet a lawyer I had contacted online beforehand, entrusting him to investigate the assets under Sean's name and his relationship with Lila. After signing the contract at the law firm, it happened to be lunchtime, and they treated me to a simple working meal. In the afternoon, while wandering around the furniture mall, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Lila who called. Let's meet. 3 years ago, the company sent Sean to the site to take on a major project for the client. They weren't the only subcontractor, another company also sent someone, and that person was Lila. That's how they met. The construction site was in the suburbs, bleak and desolate, and complaining about the client became their shared pastime. Sometimes, they had to help move equipment on the project, which was hard physical work. As a man, Sean naturally looked out for Lila. Lila returned the favor, often going out of her way to buy groceries and following recipes to make soup. A career woman who refuses to be just a trophy wife burned her finger on the clay pot while trying to cook a nutritious soup. When Sean came back, she quietly hid it, but he noticed. On a chilly night, after checking their equipment, on the way back to the hotel from the construction site, he took off his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. Just as he was about to pull his hand away, she held it in place, and the two of them walked the entire way in a posture almost like leaning on each other. Their body heat intertwined, seeming close yet distant. Every little thing was tucked away in Sean's heart, living alone and vividly in those unsent letters. Like a faint flame, it supported the shell of Sean that remained by my side. What was I doing at that time? Oh, I was watching gorillas at the zoo, playing in the sand at the amusement park, jumping up and down on an inflatable castle. Nina was only 2 years old, right at the age of running all over the place. The nanny at home was only responsible for cooking. If Nina didn't burn off her energy during the day, she would transform from an angel into a demon at night, making you wish you could howl back at her every time she screamed. My mind was filled with sun hats, sunscreen, mosquito repellent, water bottles, disinfectant wipes. At most, I might think about what the English words for orangutan, chimpanzee, and gorilla were. My brain, overwhelmed by countless trivial and meaningless details, simply couldn't handle serious matters the way it used to. I began to unconsciously give up thinking. I found pleasure in relaxing myself through gossip. The exchange of information among the mothers made me happily find kindred spirits. We gathered, we chatted idly, we praised each other's children, and we vented about the husbands at home. I didn't notice at all that dark clouds had already formed at the edge of the green shoots, and ants were gnawing at the roots beneath the ground. About 10 minutes past the agreed time, Lila hurriedly arrived, and the first thing she did upon sitting down was to apologize to me. She said she had originally set aside the time, but just as she was about to leave, her supervisor assigned her a task, so she had to work overtime for a while. Is this the daily life of an independent woman? I'm so envious. After she apologized, neither of us spoke. Only the sound of the coffee spoon stirring. Somewhere hidden, a speaker played an old song. Why must women make things hard for each other? We all have the most fragile souls, there are so many people to love, why must it be me alone? I couldn't help but laugh, it was just too fitting. Lila also noticed and her expression darkened a bit. I waved over the waiter and asked for a different song. The waiter changed it to ambush from all sides. Danger lurked everywhere, and the battle spirit surged fiercely. I laughed until my shoulders shook. This waiter was ruthless. Lila still said nothing. I was too lazy to bother finding a topic. Since she was the one who approached me, it was only natural for her to speak first. I took this opportunity to study her carefully. She was about 1.6 meters tall, wearing a skirt suit and high heels, with a well-maintained figure that showed signs of fitness. Her makeup was exquisite and precise, armed down to each perfectly curled eyelash, making it impossible to see her true face. She must be a beauty. Otherwise, Sean wouldn't have so fondly remembered her bright smile under the starlight and the mischief that flickered in her eyes. She was looking at me too. You look better than in the photos, she said. Thank you, I replied politely. In just this brief, meaningless exchange, she suddenly broke down. She hurriedly stood up, the chair scraping harshly against the floor. Sorry, I'm going to the restroom. I nodded, pretending not to notice the redness at the corner of her eyes, the sudden rush of tears. When I came out of the restroom, her face was clean and clear. It was a young and confident face. It was Sean who asked me to explain things to you. I put down my spoon and waited quietly. Perhaps it was my overly calm attitude that made her lose control again. Why don't you question me about why I became his mistress? Why don't you ask how I seduced Sean? Why don't you send someone to beat me up? Are you trying to show off? Sean ultimately chose to return to his family, he doesn't want me anymore. You just want to come and see how much of a failure I am as a mistress, don't you? I had to interrupt her rambling and remind her, you were the one who came to me. And it was you who told Sean you wanted to back out. She suddenly fell silent, then after a long moment, covered her face and sobbed quietly, I just wanted to pressure him a little, I didn't expect. Yes, she only wanted to play hard to get, but didn't expect someone to slip away like a cicada shedding its shell. She cried in a pitiful mess, her voice breaking. How could you bring up divorce with Sean? Don't you know how gentle he is, how outstanding, how pure he is? He's one of the few hopes left in this world. I once shamelessly stripped naked and climbed into his bed waiting for him, but he clearly felt something too, yet in the end, he did nothing, just turned around and left, wandering the streets all night. She asked if I knew. Of course I knew. Sean wrote in his letter that it was the most regrettable decision he ever made in his life. Lila was still crying out. You must have saved the whole world in your past life to marry Sean. Past life. How ironic. I finally spoke up to interrupt her. If I divorce Sean, you can marry the best man in your heart. Isn't that a good thing? If possible, I also hope you can lend me a hand with the divorce. I didn't say this out loud, fearing it would upset her too much. The way she cried didn't resemble a 28-year-old city woman at all. I looked away. I didn't want her to shatter my beautiful illusion of an independent woman. But Sean doesn't want to leave you. He said he swore at the wedding to take care of you for life. He said if he breaks that promise, then what's the difference between him and those men we despise? He also said I'm strong, young, independent, I have my own job, my own life. But you're different, if you lose him, you'll have nothing left. Why is it that because I'm independent and strong, I have to lose the one I love? And because you're fragile and helpless, you can cling to a man like a daughter vine forever, never letting go? She wiped her eyes and looked up. A bitter smile. Sometimes, I really can't tell how much of the love he says is true. He says he loves me, but he pities you, cherishes you, wants to take care of you for a lifetime. Wants to earn money for you, for your daughter, to support the home you share. Sounds so touching. If these words didn't come from my husband's mistress, I might have believed them. Sean sent her to explain to me, but honestly, she didn't do a very good job. I watched her forlorn back. Tell me, does he really love me? Who does he truly love in his heart? How much of his love for me is real? When I had menstrual pain, he ordered me ginger tea, does that count as love? When I couldn't sleep at night, he stayed on the phone with me all night, telling me stories to lull me to sleep, does that count as love? When he was on a business trip, he constantly checked the weather in my city, reminding me to dress warmly, to go to bed early at night, does that count as love? Love? I'm almost starting to forget what the word love even means. Annoying. I just want to get away from this pair of lovesick fools as soon as possible. Sean called me and said he would find time in the afternoon to pick Nina up from school. At night, while staying with Nina as she fell asleep, she looked at me with sleepy, blurry eyes and asked, Mom, yesterday you took me to Grandma's and said you had to solve a big problem with Dad. Have you solved your problem? I gently patted her small, round head. No. The problem is too big, Mom can't solve it. How big is it? It's as big as an elephant in the living room. Nina reached out and gestured, that big? Yes, the elephant is too big, so it burst the room. Mom will find a new house to live in. But Nina, even if Mom and Dad don't live together because of the elephant problem, Mom and Dad will always love you, just like before. Nina's black eyes looked at me quietly. Dad said you want a divorce, right? He wants me to persuade you. I smiled and stroked her head. Nina, my child, my blood-related daughter, how would she persuade me? Dad said he made a mistake and poked a hole in our sky. But he will definitely fix it with his own hands so we can continue living peacefully. But why do we have to live in a broken house? I don't like broken houses. Last time, a kid broke Elsa's arm. Although it was glued back on, she can never hold a magic wand again. I don't like Elsa without a magic wand at all. The teacher told me to be frugal and keep her. But Mom didn't force me to agree, instead, she bought me a beautiful new Elsa. Her small hand grasped mine. If there's a hole in Mom and Dad's house, even if Dad uses glue to fix it, Mom definitely won't like it, and I won't force her to like it either. Nina had fallen asleep. I gently closed the bedroom door. Sean was waiting for me again in the living room. The night was late, and I was very tired, eager to rest early. But judging by his expression, it seemed impossible to leave without having a talk with him. I found a tea set, preparing for a long conversation. He watched me put in the tea leaves, his weary brows unfurling as if recalling something. This tea set was from when we first got married, given by someone back then. I lowered my head to brew the tea, listening to Sean reminisce. At that time I had just started working, money was tight. After paying rent and utilities, there was barely anything left. I only dared to take you to street stalls after work because it was cheap and you could eat for a long time. Actually, we didn't eat much, it was just that being able to look at you, to spend more time with you, even if we said nothing and did nothing, that was enough, so happy, truly happy. Back then, many people were after you. After work, there were often cars waiting downstairs, trying to whisk you away. I had no car, couldn't afford big bouquets, and wasn't good at dressing up. Standing there, being teased by you, I felt like a high schooler who had wandered into the wrong place. But you still happily linked your arm with mine, went with me to those street stalls you actually didn't like, watched the cheapest late-night movies, wandered the underground malls where teenage girls went, and introduced me generously to those suitors as your boyfriend, saying we'd get married soon." The man in his 30s choked up, unable to continue. I brewed the tea and brought him a cup. Then, politely turning my head away, I looked elsewhere, waiting for him to compose himself before turning back. I spoke softly. "Lila came to see me this afternoon." Sean looked up, hope shining in his eyes. "Did she make things clear to you?" "Joanne, I've cut ties with her completely. I won't look for her again, nor will I contact her." He took out his phone and eagerly placed it in front of me. I lowered my gaze and glanced at it. Under his expectant look, I picked up the phone. I opened an email account he hadn't used in a long time. Inside, there were only neatly arranged spam messages. Sean looked at me with confusion. I gently traced my finger across the screen. On March 27, 2014, I met Lila for the first time. She was wearing a white turtleneck sweater, a stiff plaid coat, pushing a suitcase through the crowd. She greeted me. "Hi, are you Sean from Washington? I heard you're a big deal." As I read softly, Sean's face turned pale. His eyes were filled with disbelief. I had read the contents of every letter. In the days just after he died, I was like a masochist, turning over and over the letter, until I could recite any part of it at any moment. Sean's writing was brief, and I read it with difficulty. It was like pouring cement into my heart, concrete pouring down in torrents, the loud clatter of the mixer, slowly and thoroughly shattering everything. My insides were torn apart, left in pieces beyond repair. Until everything settled again, hardened, took shape. I was reborn, steel-boned and iron-willed, unafraid of blades or bullets. They sat in the taxi when Lila suddenly leaned over and kissed him. He dared not move until Lila sat back, turning her head toward the window. Only then did he dare to shift his eyes, staring blankly at the sorrowful profile of her face. He wrote in the letter that at that moment, he wished he were still unmarried, without a wife or daughter, so he could have boldly and passionately kissed her back, showing her through his actions just how much he loved her. When I read this, Sean finally snapped out of it. "Enough, stop talking." He asked in a trembling voice, "How do you know about these things?" "Joanne, how could you possibly know?" I finished the tea in my hand, which had cooled to just the right temperature, and set the cup back on the table. Smiling, I looked at him. "Sean, your dream can come true. Why are you unhappy?" That night, Sean dashed out headlong despite the late hour. I was helpless and had no choice but to call Lila. Fortunately, I had added her on WeChat during the day. "Sean came looking for you." Before I could finish, there was already surprise on the other end of the line. He came to see me? Did he make things clear with you? Have you both finally decided to divorce?" I paused for a moment, then spoke again, my voice cold. "No, I just wanted to warn you that Sean might be furious. Be careful with your personal safety and don't let him in easily." Only he and Lila knew the intimate details between them. Even if I hired a private detective, there was no way I could have learned so much. So he was convinced that everything I said had been leaked to me by Lila. He even imagined the whole scenario in his head. Lila, on one hand, played the victim in front of him, signaling her intention to back off to stir his pity and guilt, while on the other hand, she provoked me, forcing me into fights and arguments with him. Isn't this the usual trick of mistresses? I have no idea how Sean made those connections. Did I ever say that I don't understand men at all? They can be purebred straight men one moment, all steel and innocence, unable to detect the scheming hidden in a woman's words. And the next, experts at spotting bitches, with eyes like fire, able to sniff out, and even imagine, women scheming, vying, and jealous over them from yards away. Lila called the police. I had settled things at home, and by the time I arrived at the police station, the officers had already finished their investigation and reached a conclusion, a dispute between a man and a woman over their relationship. Lila sat in a chair, wrapped in a small blanket the police had given her, her expression vacant. There were clear finger marks on her face. Sean was not much better off, his hair was disheveled, his face scratched by fingernails, and his clothes stained all over. Seeing me, Lila clutched the blanket tightly and stood up. Sean was quicker than her, rushing over immediately to stand in front of me, putting himself between me and her. He turned his back to me, clenching his fists as he growled at Lila, "I never did anything to you. Don't even think about spouting nonsense in front of my wife." The blanket slipped off Lila, and she grabbed Sean's shirt, crying hoarsely, "But you said you loved me, you said you only had responsibility and duty toward your wife, you said you couldn't bear to let her fend for herself, and you said you would keep me in your heart, always cherishing the days we spent together. Sean shouted, I lied to you. If I had known you'd entangle with my wife, I wouldn't have said a single word to you. The light in Lila's eyes faded inch by inch. She picked up the blanket and handed it to the female officer who had come over to break up the fight. She reached out to smooth her messy short hair and grinned at me. Miss Joanne, seeing this scene, aren't you happy? Sort of happy. She hadn't expected me to answer and paused for a moment. After all, when we met this afternoon, I had been quiet and reserved. After a while, she gave a bitter smile, said nothing more, and lowered her head as she left. She wore high heels and a delicate off-shoulder little black dress. It was clear she had prepared carefully in advance because the man she loved was coming to see her. She just hadn't expected it to end like this. I guessed she would still show up on time at her cubicle tomorrow. Still dressed in a refined suit, still wearing 6-centimeter heels. Her makeup meticulous, her steps unhurried. No one would know she had once been a mistress, no one would know she had broken off with her lover late at night. She wouldn't lose everything just because love had failed. I envy independent women, truly. After Sean died in the car accident, I once searched for the woman Sean had kept deep in his heart. The private detective told me that Lila had never married and devoted herself entirely to her work, with a very successful career. She adopted a child, and when I saw the photo, the child's features somewhat resembled Sean. In my previous life, her and his story perfectly embodied the aesthetics of being. Their love was deep, pure, and ultimate. I never expected that in this life. All I wanted was to help them achieve happiness, just to get a divorce, yet I ended up causing such a messy scene for them. What I can't understand even more is where Sean's change really comes from. Clearly, in that mailbox, he loved Lila so deeply, so sadly, so desperately. Why does he now act like a madman who has lost his mind, stubbornly clinging to our marriage that's already full of cracks, refusing to take even a single step back? The furniture I bought was delivered to the rental apartment, so it's ready to be lived in. There has also been progress on the lawyer's side. Sean shows no signs of transferring assets. Most of our family's property is managed by him, so I'm not clear on the specifics. If he were to make any moves, it would put us at a disadvantage in the lawsuit. But he hasn't tampered with anything. The lawyer successfully applied for asset preservation without any issues. He also hired a lawyer. His lawyer told mine that his client was unwilling to divorce and hoped to gain my understanding, wishing to restore the marriage to its original state. My lawyer asked for my opinion. The lawyer I hired was a single woman. She helped me analyze the situation. If I divorced, my quality of life would decline, and with my current income level, I might not be able to secure custody of Nina. I said, I'm not going to fight over custody. If he wants Nina, he can have her. As for quality of life, I plan to find a new job. It might be tough at first, but things will gradually improve. I didn't tell her that the property I'd get from the divorce would be used for investment and financial management. Having been given a second chance at life, I wouldn't dare claim I'd get rich overnight, but I'm confident I can at least secure a worry-free future. You don't want the child? The lawyer was a bit surprised. I explained, custody is with her father, but I will always be her mother. If custody were with me, I can't guarantee that Sean would always love her. Sean has been looking for every opportunity to see me. After I moved out, we agreed that Nina would come to my place every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. He was punctual, always personally bringing Nina over. Occasionally, the three of us would go out to eat together, like a family of three, seemingly no different from usual. Once, Nina fell asleep in the car. Sean drove to the riverside, turned off the air conditioning, rolled down the window, letting the river breeze flow in. He didn't look at me, his gaze blankly fixed on the river's surface. Joanne, lately I keep having the same dream. I raised my eyebrows at him. Contrary to what I had expected, Sean's dream was not the same as my past life. In his dream, he was the one who brought up the divorce. As for me, like most middle-aged housewives betrayed by their families, I went crazy tracking down and insulting Lila, hoping to drive away the other woman. I tried everything to win him back, even seeking out marriage counselors, hoping he would return to the family for the sake of our daughter. But all this only made him more disgusted with me, resolute in his decision to divorce and marry the one he loved. Hearing this, I asked him, what? Because I was the one who brought up the divorce and hurt your pride, you got all stubborn? That's fine, I can let you be the one to ask for the divorce too. Sean stared at me blankly, his eyes full of pain. Joanne, I just hope that, like in the dream, even if you lose control and throw a tantrum, at least it shows you still care about me, about our family. Sorry, I can't help with that. The pain in his eyes deepened. He lowered his gaze and murmured to himself, in the dream, you said the same thing to me later on. Huh, there was a later part too? In his dream, he and Lila's true love finally bore fruit. Did I, the discarded wife, not silently vanish from his life? Was I still able to assert my presence? In Sean's dream, the divorce was only half the story, and what followed was an incredibly twisted development. After my divorce, I re-entered society. The delicate flower once spoiled by being cared for suddenly burst forth with astonishing endurance and initiative. I majored in foreign trade in college. After the divorce, I self-studied and obtained the latest relevant certifications, re-entering the industry in my 30s and starting from the very bottom. With good luck, riding the wave of improving international relations and the further development of the country's foreign trade, combined with my relentless drive, I quickly earned my boss's favor and established a foothold in the company. I even attracted some high-quality suitors. Sean's mouth twitched, revealing a smile more awkward than crying. I still remember the name of that suitor, Felix, a wealthy and handsome golden bachelor. He thought highly of me, even dreaming that I, a middle-aged woman remarried, deserved to be wildly popular. I asked curiously, what about you two? You and Lila, are you doing well? Sean lowered his head, and after a long pause, he said with difficulty, no. Both of us are busy, we get home late every night. Or when one of us goes on a business trip, it lasts 10 days or half a month. To avoid disturbing each other, we started sleeping in separate rooms as soon as we got married. Sometimes I stand in the living room, blankly asking myself, what's the difference between these bare walls and staying in a hotel on a business trip? At times like that, I can't help but think of you, think of Nina's noise, think of how every day when I came home before, I could always see you and Nina at home, telling stories or crying and fussing, at least there was sound, warmth, like a real home. I talked to Lila, hoping she could pay more attention to the family. We should have a child soon. But Lila looked at me like I was a stranger and asked how I dared to think that way. She actually said she never wanted to end up like you, where I'm the butcher and she's the fish. I applauded Lila. See, professional women just have a clearer, broader perspective than I do. Sean rubbed his brow hard, exhaustion written all over his face. After that, I stopped talking to her. I started writing letters to you. Letters? I widened my eyes, looking at him in surprise. Was it the kind of letter I imagined? The ones never sent, lying forgotten in some dusty email inbox? Yes, exactly the kind I imagined. In Sean's dreams, whenever he felt disappointed in Lila or dissatisfied with life, he would write letters to the me he longed for. In those letters, he recalled our past together. For example, when I had just graduated, we lived on meager salaries, renting a tiny 40-square-meter one-bedroom apartment, and had to pick and choose vegetables at the market for cooking. For example, when we had just gotten married and I wasn't yet pregnant, I would work all night, full of ambition to get a raise and promotion within a few years, aiming to reach the pinnacle of my life. In his letter, he poured out his heart. I forgot that you could endure hardship too, that you weren't willing from the start to just be a housewife. It was I who bound you with family and children, clipped your wings, wore down your ambition, yet in the end, I resented you for not progressing, for being stuck in your ways. He even fantasized repeatedly about a life where the three of us never divorced. For instance, when Nina got scolded by me, she would run pitter-patter to him to complain, boldly and shamelessly telling him that I was a powder keg again today. Instead of being like before, like a guest in his home, with a polite and distant smile always on his little face. For example, he would hold me all night, the night light dim and yellow, warmth in his arms, everything grounded, making one feel at ease. I laughed, at first a low chuckle, then louder and louder, until the river breeze scattered my laughter, blowing tears all over my face. How absurd, Sean. In my past life, you longed for a woman you couldn't have, and in this life, you crave the warmth of family in your dreams. How can you be so greedy? So selfish? So cowardly. Lila, like a madwoman, wanted to confirm who your true love really was, while my past life spent half a lifetime repeatedly breaking down and rebuilding. In the end, the conclusion was that Sean, you are nothing but a selfish, cowardly little man who wants it all. You don't deserve any sincerity. The divorce took a long time, but fortunately, 2 years later, after the second lawsuit, I finally obtained the divorce decree smoothly with a rental contract as evidence. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you to the last 37 words of Article 1079 of the marriage law. I didn't change lawyers, she is still the same young female lawyer from the beginning. After leaving the courtroom, she asked me if I would regret it, because from a worldly perspective, Sean wasn't a bad person, not even a typical scumbag. The sun was just right that day, and I looked at this young woman who had only recently gotten married. I've seen her moments. She was draped in a white wedding dress, smiling sweetly, but the groom was a man nearing 40. It's said that after my case is closed, she plans to end her career and return to family life. Because her wealthy and older husband wants her to actively prepare for pregnancy and be a good mother. I smiled, no regrets. Rather than a long-term meal ticket, I'd rather my lover be my soulmate. The lawyer politely said goodbye to me. I did not miss the sneer in her eyes. A man approaching 40 can justifiably secure high-quality reproductive resources, while a woman past 30 talking about a soulmate only invites the world's laughter. Yet, even if one is but a blade of grass in a fierce wind, or a flower among dust, one can still hold on to their pride. You can still respect your own life and stick to your choices. As for me, I choose unwavering pride. Even if it means loneliness. Even if there are losses. Even if it makes others laugh in vain. I will march forward with my head held high, never looking back. The story ends.